Hey everyone, here's a quick tutorial for animating and rigging some really basic mechanical stuff in 3D Max. For instance, you might want to animate a door, right? Just opening and closing, right? No big deal. So let me show you how to kind of set that up in 3D Max. So number one, I have my two door pieces, separate objects. They both have the same pivot. They don't need to, but I like having things the same pivot. And they are in world space as you see here, which is very important because this is where your pivot's going to be. So if my door was over here, when I brought it into Unity, my pivot point would be over here, and it'd be annoying to place and all that stuff. So you don't want to do that. So number one, what we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of a hierarchy or a skeleton or whatever you want to call it, a rig to this door. So I really enjoy using dummies. Just for the most part, we could animate the actual doors themselves. But what I do, if you go into the Create panel here, under this little tape measure here called Helpers, there's a dummy object. A dummy is kind of like an empty game object in Unity. So I'll just make like a little one here, and I will open up the Move tool, right-click on the Move tool, and zero it out. You could also zero things out down here. I'm kind of just used to opening it up there for some reason. By default, this thing's called dummy. I usually like to name my thing b_root. That's bone_root. Now, I'll show you why I do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take both of these doors. We're going to select both of them. I'm going to select the tool up here called Select and Link. And with that selected, we're going to click and hold over the doors and drag, and you'll see this little line appears here. And when we hover over the dummy, it will change icons. And when I click it, you'll notice in your hierarchy here, my doors are now underneath this B root. So what happens is when I move this now, it will move both doors. This is nice to have in Unity just so you have a single kind of root object where you can move your stuff around. And we'll kind of talk about what else is useful for this. So this kind of root object, it's not going to really do too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to animate these doors. So this is kind of our simple rig setup that we have for these doors, nothing too complicated. So let's animate these doors. I'm going to select both of these doors. And under my my keyframes here, I got 100 of them right now. I probably won't need that many. That's fine. I'm going to hit this key button here called Set Key, and it'll make a little keyframe for me here. So what that's going to do is just going to remember the position of the doors as they are right now. I'm going to move them to a little bit further, to 20 units or so. And I'm going to click Set Key again, the giant key button there. And this will set their new key position that I will adjust for them. Now, if I just move these doors right now, nothing's going to happen. It's not actually going to remember the new position for this. It's going to just ruin your animation. To actually animate, I need to have this auto key button on here. You'll see if I click that on. It will make this outline go red, and this bar here goes red, and that means you are in animating mode. So anything you do here will get recorded onto your keyframes. If you do not have that on, it will mess up, so always make sure you're animating with this on. You will most likely animate at some point without that button on. It happens to everybody, and you're going to hate yourself. There's just not much you can do. So with this keyframe on, I'm on frame 20. I have my door selected. I'm going to move one door over here, X units. You can see how much you're moving it here, so like a meter. And I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to move it about a meter back. I could be really precise if I wanted to, but I don't have to. And now when I scrub this timeline, you'll see my doors open and close. All right, nice and easy. I could hit this play button over here, and you get to see your animations play. Now obviously this, I don't need 100 frames of this animation, so I can shrink down this timeline a couple ways. I can go into this play button here and right click it. And so bring it up to my time configuration thingy, and under start and end time here, I could just set this to be 20 if I wanted to. If you want to do it quickly, you can, over top of this bar here, you can hold Alt, Control, and Shift all at once. And if you click and hold your right mouse button, you'll be able to move this along and shrink it down to where you want, the end frame. If you do your left mouse button, you can control the front of the thing if you ever want to go to negatives, and we'll kind of talk about why you'd want that too. So now that I have this, I'll be able to hit the play button and see my stuff loop. If I don't ever want it to loop, I could right click on this thing and just change off loop here. If I just want to have to hit play every time. There we go. So that's that. I mean, that's your simple door animation. It's kind of boring, so what I would probably do is I would add like a little shake when it opens, right? Like a little, because it made contact. So what I'm going to do is somewhere around frame 15, I'm actually going to say this is where it opens fully, and then we'll add a little bit of a shake after that. So what I'll do is I can select both of my doors here, and I could actually select, marquee select this, this last keyframe here. You'll see it'll turn white, and I can hold shift and copy it over here. And you'll see what will happen is now those last bunch of frames, it won't move at all because it's the same position in those things. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to maybe move this to 14. I'm going to give it a frame kind of space. I'm going to hit keyframe. And this guy here, I'm going to move him a little bit forward. And this guy a little bit forward. And then on this keyframe, I'm going to select both of my dudes. Or actually, I might just manually just move them back a little bit. And then on this keyframe, I'm going to just move him a little forward. And now what I'll have is a little doof, doof. It's not a lot, but it's enough to make it feel like, you know, there's a little bit of an impact there. It's always nice to have those extra little bits in your animation. So that's pretty much it. That's your animation is done. And when you export into Unity, we'll talk about bringing it into Unity in the Unity tutorials and all that. So what we'll do now is we'll shift over our animations here to maybe 40. And now I have an open animation. I might want to do a close one as well that's different because I want to add the camera shake or the little object shake when it hits the center. Right? So if I just play this animation backwards in Unity, it would start with a shake and then close normally, and that's kind of boring. So what I might want to do is just start my own animation here. So now with frame 20, it starts open. I may want to take both of these and just duplicate that over just so I'm kind of sharing a frame. Or not sharing a frame, sorry. And then over here, I might want to take my 0 frame and copy that all the way over because that's my closed. And then I'll kind of do the same thing. So I'll take this one, I'll copy it over here, and then you know, zoom in a little bit here. And then on this frame, I'll open the door like a decent amount. And then on this frame, I will close them back up. And then on this frame, I will open them up a little bit. And that way I should have a little open, close, open, close. And that's it. So that's really simple. What if we wanted to add a little bit of extra fancy pants to our animation? So let's unhide this little thing here. I have this little door lock. Now, what if I wanted to have this thing animate and then the doors to open? Well, or I just wanted to have this as part of the door. What I can do is select the Select and Lock tool, click on this guy, and drag him onto this door. Now, what will happen is he'll inherit the animation from that door now because he's a child of it. And what I can still do is you'll see here, even though he's actually animating, he's only just inheriting animation. He doesn't have any keyframes himself. So what I can do if I wanted to, I could select both of these doors. I could give my doors a few seconds of nothing time, so from 0 to 5. And with this guy selected, I could do a 0 to 5 animation. And in that time, I can just rotate him 90 degrees. So you'll see, oh, sometimes 3D Max likes to mess with you a little bit. Let's just, yay, thanks, rotation. Sometimes rotations are the worst in the hell are you doing? I might not have X-formed this puppy. Sometimes it freaks out. So what I might want to do is undo that animation. I'm going to break his link to that because you don't want to X-form things that are linked. I'll just reset the X-form on this guy, see if that helps at all. All right, let's link him back up. And from 0 to 5, let's rotate him by 90 degrees. There we go, that's better. Sometimes X-forming just does not work properly. So now what our animation will look like is open, open. And then I can do the same thing at the very end. I can take my shake animation here. I have both doors selected, remember that. And move the shake animation by about 5 frames. And then I'm going to make sure that this guy has keyframe here, keyframe there. I should have my rotation lock on. So let's take a look. We got open, open, close, close. And you can do whatever fancy pants stuff you want. You could attach more sub-objects to this guy and have them like clamp on, right? So if I had, you know, like a little clamp on here, it could like shoot backwards, this thing rotates, and the door rotates. So you could get as elaborate as you want. But now we have a little hierarchy of objects. They're all animating together independently, inheriting animation, all that fancy stuff. And I still have my parent object that I can now move around and move my door where I like. So that's kind of a quick little synopsis of just simple rigging and animation in 3D Max. And look forward to the Unity tutorials of actually exporting, importing this guy into Unity. Thank y'all.